All right, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is coming under a little bit of scrutiny, coming under a little bit of fire, and mixed martial arts fans and celebrities alike are coming after him and calling bullshit on some of the stories that he had to say on the Joe Rogan podcast. On the Rogan podcast, he said, listen, I was in the WWE. I was working over 200 days a year. I was wrestling all the time, traveling everywhere, and only making $150,000 a year. He said that he heard about Pride Fighters, one of the biggest organizations at the time out in Japan, the Saitama Super Arena, which had some legendary fighters, Maurizio Shogun, who were Vanderlei Silva, Quinton Rampage Jackson, and these guys, Nogueira, Fedor Emelianenko, the list goes on. And these guys were getting paid $150,000 a night. So he thought, and he said to his wife, I should maybe go over there and fight in Pride, okay? Now look, listen, somebody like Dwayne Johnson, big guy, granted, wasn't a wrestler, didn't wrestle at school or college or anything like that, wasn't a martial artist, was a football player, but somebody like that could have made a big splash in Pride. They loved big, massive, muscular freak shows. I mean, look at Bob Sapp. Bob Sapp was not a martial artist, but he was a gigantic draw in Pride. And let's be honest, in Pride, they openly encouraged the use of performance-enhancing drugs. So Dwayne Johnson would have been fine. Now, as I said, a lot of people are calling bullshit on this story. Andrew Dice Clay, the absolutely hilarious comedian, he said, Mother Effer was WWF champion 2 years after his debut. Stop with the hard luck story. You were never going to do MMA. Listen, I'm not saying he goes on about a hard luck story. That's bloody Andrew Dice Clay. Meltzer said what? Dave Meltzer says he's turning into Hulk Hogan with these stories. You were going to train for a bit and then take on the likes of Don Fry, Seven, the Gracies, Goodrich, Taktarov, Kerr, Chemo. And in 1997, they had their first event. And by the end of 1998, they'd only done 3 more shows. Anyway, look, listen, not my words, their words. The reality is, he could have done okay because, as I said, they did love big spectacles. Bob Sapp was gigantic, not that technical, but he was a big, tough motherfucker. But for Dwayne Johnson, look, listen, if somebody like Jake Paul can learn how to do boxing, if somebody like Jake Paul can be talking about a fight with Nate Diaz in mixed martial arts, why can't Dwayne Johnson? But still, it's a fun story that I just saw. Now, speaking of Jake Paul, yes, Jake Paul, he's at it again. We know he beat Nate Diaz, regrettably, in the boxing fight, and he's been calling out Nate Diaz for a mixed martial arts fight in the PFL next year. He said the offer's out there. He said Nate Diaz has been offered $10 million. It will be the most money he's ever earned in a fight. And he said that Nate Diaz doesn't want to do it because he's scared. Now, currently, Jake Paul is scheduled to fight Andre August, a real boxer, 10-1. Smaller guy, but I'll give the guy credit. No one's heard of Andre August, and he is a real boxer. 10-1, he's fought a lot of journeymen, but so what? That's what a lot of boxers do when they're starting their careers. So, fair play to Jake Paul for that one. But he's calling out Nate Diaz. Now, as we know, Nate Diaz did post a picture that supposedly Diaz and Jake Paul were going to box again on December 15th. Here is what Jake Paul had to say. He said, I don't know what they are doing. It's pretty desperate, I guess. They want to make money, but not actually wanting to make things happen. We're ready. End of 2024, $10 million, which is more than he ever made. He's sitting there asking for more money. Basically, drunk tweeting random shit and random fight posters. He's making himself look like a fool. But he did double down and say, listen, the fight with Nate Diaz, mixed martial arts in the PFL, that is what I want to do. The biggest payday that Nate Diaz will ever have. And he's talking out of his goddamn backside. He said, Nate Diaz needs it. Why does Nate Diaz need Jake Paul? He's one of the biggest stars in mixed martial arts. There is a lot of options for Nate Diaz. More importantly, a third fight with Conor McGregor. Right? Everyone wants to see that. The market for that is there. The demand for that is there. And the paycheck, more than likely, will be bigger than $10 million. So Jake Paul, give it a rest. Shut up. Crawl back under the rock that you called out from. Now, all right, switching gears to a real fighter, Dustin Poirier. He wants to fight again pretty soon. I spoke to him at Madison Square Garden when I watched Tom Aspinall become the champ. I asked him, he said, I've got nothing lined up. But the reports are, wants a rematch against Justin Gaethje at UFC 300. He said, I couldn't fight at 100. I only made my debut at 125, missed at 200. I'm not going to be around for UFC 400. So UFC 300, that's the one he wants, and he wants to rematch against Justin Gaethje. Amazing fight. I'd love to see it, but I got to say, that's a ballsy call out for Dustin Poirier, right? Let's remember, it was a head kick knockout very early in that fight for Justin Gaethje. Dustin's a great guy. I'm a huge fan, and he has beaten Justin Gaethje before. But if he doesn't fight before, will he get his mojo back? Will he get his confidence back? Will he exercise the demons in the closet, the psychological trauma, right? Look at Kamaru Usman, right? He lost via head kick to Leon Edwards. The very next fight, he went out there and fought Leon Edwards again. Never really performed. He showed up, it was a close fight, but he lost. It was a clear loss. Then he comes back against Khamzat Chimaev and looks kind of like he was back to his old self. That's because he's gotten over that shock and awe. He'd just been knocked out cold. Then you're stepping right back in the octagon with the person that did it. There's got to be a rebuilding process. Now, I've got to say, I respect Dustin Poirier for wanting to do this, but it is a dangerous strategy. But you know what? It's a strategy that I would pay for. I would love to see that fight. I mean, fair play to Dustin Poirier. That man is an absolute legend. And yeah, he wants that. He said, I would take that fight for sure. I would take that fight UFC 300, but we'll see. If I was in Justin's shoes, if he's guaranteed a title fight, you might not want to risk it, but hey, this is fighting. People get antsy. We'll see what happens. He said that he's definitely open to that. But me, as a fan of mixed martial arts, I'm also definitely open to that one. Now, speaking of UFC 300, Conor McGregor apparently will not be fighting on that one. We're all expecting the fight with Michael Chandler to go down. It's got to go down. It's going to happen, and we will see it. And the thought was it was going to go down on UFC 300. His coach, John Kavanagh, was speaking to Ariel Helwani, and he said, no, they don't want to do it. They want to do it in International Fight Week. And, you know, they're spinning some sob story and talking about Conor McGregor's mental health and all the rest of it. I think he's fine. And I think, to be honest, the longer he has to train and prepare for Michael Chandler, the better. Michael Chandler's the one that's got to worry about his mental health. Michael Chandler's the one that's been in the gym every single day, crushing it, doing circuits, sparring. I mean, the man is a workout machine. He's a dedicated athlete. McGregor's been enjoying himself. Now, let's remember, it's been 3 years. By the time it comes to International Fight Week, 3 years since the last time we saw Conor McGregor. I think we're all highly anticipating the return of the Mac, right? I want to see it. I want to see that fight. And if he gets through Michael Chandler, he's going to have a ton of options. If he wins, I say he gets a title shot against Islam Makhachev. If he loses, well, guess what? The aforementioned Dustin Poirier, there's unfinished business there. The aforementioned Nate Diaz, there's a massive fight there. Conor McGregor, regardless, win or lose, he has a lot of big fights. It's always a big fight when it's McGregor. But the mental health of Conor McGregor is being affected because he has to wait an extra 2 months. Sorry, I'm not buying that one. Now, tonight, also going down at the Apex, we've got Scotland's on. Paul Craig is going up against Brendan Allen in the main event. Very, very excited for this one. Paul Craig will be joining me and Tom Aspinall at Tales from the Octagon 2. myticket.co.uk if you want to come December 14th and 16th. But now, Paul Craig coming into this is a massive underdog. Allen, a minus 440 favourite, meaning you got to risk $440 to win 100. And Paul Craig is plus 310, meaning you put $100 on Craig, you'll win 310. So let's talk about the fight. The problem is for Paul Craig, and I don't say the problem meaning disrespectfully, he leans on his jiu-jitsu very heavily, okay? He's got ridiculous jiu-jitsu. The only man to submit Magomed Ankalaev, 4 minutes 59 of round 3. You can never count him out. Of course, he's got a win. He's got a submission over the former light heavyweight champion Jamal Hill in the first round. So this guy can pull it off. He can pull it from behind. He's always dangerous. And of course, made his middleweight debut against Andre Muniz. Another very, very tough, talented grappler. What did he do? Got him on the ground, got him out in position, smashed him to pieces with the elbows. Now, Brendan Allen on the flip side is a little bit more well-rounded. Now, both guys are, but Brendan Allen is slick on the feet. He's got great striking. He's got great wrestling, and he's got fantastic jiu-jitsu as well. Allen's got a record of 22-5, 5 knockouts, 13 submissions, and currently on a 5-fight win streak with 3 submissions, rear naked chokes in a row. So when you look at it like that, it's going to be a tough one for Paul Craig. But Paul Craig has the intangibles. Paul Craig has the things that you can't measure: heart, will, desire. He's an absolutely gigantic middleweight as well. Now, granted, I do think that Brendan Allen moves better. I do think he's a more polished striker, and he's probably the better wrestler. Now, I might be predicting with my heart here. Maybe I'm hoping, but I truly believe that Paul Craig has the ability to go out there and win this fight. It won't be easy. It's 5 rounds, but over a 5-round fight, Paul Craig has got a hell of a chin. He's absolutely gigantic for the weight class, and the jiu-jitsu, it's always there. And I think over 5 rounds, he'll be able to pull off the submission or be able to get top position. And once he does, the aggression from this man is ridiculous. So, love both men. Great night fight at the Apex tonight. Paul Craig, Brendan Allen. My prediction, Paul Craig by submission right about round 4. But there it is. Dwayne Johnson talking about MMA. Jake Paul going on about Nate Diaz. Conor McGregor's mental health is suffering. And Paul Craig gets the job done once again. Dustin Poirier wants to come back at UFC 300. There's just a few of the news stories that I didn't get to this week. I've had a busy week indeed, traveling all over the place. As I said before, if you're in England, December 14th and 16th, myticket.co.uk, Tales from the Octagon 2, featuring Tom Aspinall and Paul Craig. Maybe see you there. Subscribe, ring the bell. See you soon.